Alright, with the item animations finished, so we've dropped in the animations. You'll see is a pick up weapon idle, pick up weapon primary, then put down idle. So you can place those in for the weapon, and then when it comes to the item animations on the hold, this is going to be the primary, like the visual for the weapon being held or the items being held. So we'll have these inside of here. The ones we currently have is just called weapon carry, and then up angles, up right, up left, and those. Okay, with that part, there's no reason for the weapon behavior types. You don't actually have to use the use right here. We're going to be using a separate, we're going to use the primary, secondary, fire ones for it. So that's all you need for the item animation. I'm going to make sure that on the item depth that we go ahead and change this to 1 for all the directions, just so that's in front of it. The socket stand and crouch. The crouch, you could change it if you wanted to. Because the player tile we'll be using is just a square object, it'll be fine whether he's standing or whether he's crouching to be at 0. Let's go ahead and go into the options here. So we have our first set. Oh, actually, before I do that, let me make sure I get the other part. Down at the bottom, we have the animations. So again, remember, you've got all the states, so overheating, all the cooldown, reload, empty fire, all that. You have the primary attack. So this one is, think of it as the item use. So you have the use state, and the use state's going to have the 8 directions for weapon attack primary, and then up, down, left, right. And then the secondary attack will have the weapon attack secondary, up, down, left, right, and all those. Alright, so then the same thing for the animations primary and secondary. And then with all those animations in, that's going to allow the weapon to be used at any state for any type. You may have a very specific purpose for it, which requires you to have less support in terms of the animations and the options. But just remember that the more, from a developer standpoint, the more options you make available for the end user, they can reuse the weapon in multiple ways, which is a good thing, because then you're, in terms of the product that you're putting out, you're actually allowing them to get more than just a simple single item or a single purpose or use for it. So we have the weapon is, so by default, what we're looking at is saying what is the type of weapon it is. You have a pickup type, which means it's just simply the weapon comes and, like the item, it just comes and it gets picked up. But at the same time, you can also say that the item can be, there is a auto shoot, which means that if you want it to be in the scene like a turret, then you can have it where it's just going to automatically shoot without you having to do anything, without actually touching it to pick it up. And then there's also the off state. So if you don't want the item to be active at any point until maybe an event trigger, then you can start it in the off state. Since we're not doing a for this particular one, we're not doing the auto shoot like a turret, so we're going to skip the auto ones. We'll do those when we actually do the other. There'll be 2 of them that we'll use for this for these settings right here. There's the carry weapon settings. So for this one, it's just simply saying that when you go for the pickup, are you actually going to carry a weapon, or are you going to, or is it a stationary weapon that you actually stop, the player stops there and can't move while they're actually using that weapon? And then you can lock the stationary player so that once they're in, they're just focused on using the weapon in that position. Alright, so we're going to do carry just because we want to have a simple pickup on it. There's a active direction and use last direction positions. So active direction, we're just simply saying that on an active direction, meaning like if you're going to the right, then if it's checked, it's saying it must be active in that direction to be able to be used. You can also say use last direction, and this is what we're going to use, or all of these. The use direction top use, this is basically saying that if you stop, so your player's walking forward to the left, and then you stop, if you're still facing left, you can shoot. if these are available and you actually say you must be active, that means that you must be doing something, meaning moving, and then you can shoot. The advantage to this one is just for gameplay. So if you have a player who, if you only want the player to shoot while the player is running, then you can enable these. If you want to be able to let the player shoot at any point, then you just enable these down here. Alright. Now, players shoot on primary, secondary. There's going to be a lot of primary, secondaries for this first part, bouncing back and forth between the two. On the primary, when can the player shoot with this weapon? Is this weapon a water gun, and he can only shoot it when he's inside of water? If you say specifics, you can uncheck all of these and just say player shoots on volume, which means if it's a water type thing, he can only shoot on that. And then if he gets out of it and he's out of the water and he's trying to move around and trying to use it, he won't be able to use it. So you can be specific with the state the player is in to determine whether or not the player can use the item that he's currently got. And it's going to be for primary and secondary on these. The socket stand primary. This is going to be one more layer in terms of the depth for the item on the offset. There's a stand primary, and the socket right here, this is referring to where is the bullet going to come out, where is the projectile going to come from. So the first one, the item we have, is where is the item, this item going to be. This one is going to say where is the bullet coming from. So if we're facing up, it's going to be 50 above us, which means it's going to be right at the top of the other box. Right, and this is actually the increment on this one, I believe, is like a 5 times increase, so that you can get more, you can get closer to an exact spot in terms of the pixel for movement. So it's currently set up so that it actually goes, like if we were here by the construct, it goes here, here, here. It's going all the way around the player is where the bullet would actually come out. The socket for wherever the item's going to produce a projectile, that's where it would come out from. Alright, same thing for the crouch. Crouch is saying it's coming from the same points. If your player crouches, then you may want to adjust the height for where these come out, the Y, the second ones. Then you have the stand and the crouch for secondary, same setup. Alright, so that's going to be basic parts for the crouching, basic elements for the standing, and the for where the socket's going to come. And then we've also looked at the other pieces up here. We'll continue just down the list. There's quite a lot inside of here, and we'll try to take our time just to identify some of the key points for you so that at least when you're inside a tile builder, you'll know what to look for.